Space was cold and endless. A small, broken spaceship floated alone in the dark. Inside the ship, two alien girls sat close together, their arms wrapped around each other. Their skin was pale, and their eyes were tired. They had no food, no water, no clean clothes. Only thin pieces of torn fabric covered their bodies, barely enough to stay warm. The older girl, maybe 16, looked out the window with empty eyes. The younger one, around 10, leaned her head on her sister's shoulder and whispered, "Are we going to die?" The older girl didn't answer. She didn't want to lie. They had been drifting for 3 days, hiding from the war that destroyed their home. Their planet had been full of smoke and screams. Everything was burning. Their mother had pushed them into a small escape pod just before a bomb hit their house. "Run," she had said. "Don't look back." And they didn't. They ran. They escaped. But they lost everything now. The air in the ship was running out. The lights blinked weakly. The computer was dead. No signal, no help, no hope. The older girl closed her eyes. "Maybe it's better if we just sleep," the little one nodded, holding her hand tightly. Their fingers were cold, like ice. Suddenly, a light appeared outside the window. A bright, moving light in the black sky. The older girl opened her eyes. Confused, the younger one sat up quickly, her eyes wide. "Is that a star?" "No," the older one said slowly. "It's moving." It wasn't a star. It was a spaceship. A real one, big and shining, not broken like theirs. The girls rushed to the window, hearts beating fast. The ship came closer and closer then. The radio crackled. For the first time in days, a voice filled the silence. "Unknown vessel, are you alive?" "Repeat, are you alive?" The girls stared at each other, shocked. The older one quickly pressed the button on the broken radio, but nothing happened. They tried again, but the system was dead. They couldn't reply. They could only hope the ship had seen them. Minutes passed like hours. Then with a loud sound, something touched their ship. A door opened, and a man in a spacesuit floated in. He looked strong, tall, and calm. He held a small light and looked around slowly. When he saw the girls, he stopped. He took off his helmet, and they saw his face human, kind, and serious. He said only one thing. "Both of you, come home." The girls didn't speak. They didn't trust him yet, but his voice didn't sound like a soldier or a hunter. It sounded like safety. He stepped forward slowly, keeping his hands open to show he meant no harm. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said. "I saw your ship, no signal, no life signs. But I hoped." He looked at their torn clothes, their skinny arms, their scared faces. "You've been through hell," he whispered, more to himself than to them. The older girl stood in front of her sister, still protecting her. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice dry and broken. "My name's Elias," he replied. "I'm human, from Earth." "Earth?" she asked, confused. "That planet is gone." He smiled a little. "No, it's still there." He reached into his bag and pulled out a silver blanket and some food bars. "Here," he said. "Eat first, ask questions later." The younger girl took a step forward. She looked at her sister, who gave a small nod. Then she grabbed the food and ate like she hadn't eaten in days. Because she hadn't, Elias helped them into his ship. It was warm, clean, and full of strange but comforting things: soft lights, warm air, a small kitchen. It felt like a real home. He gave them real clothes, not fancy, but soft and warm. He gave them water, real water. And he gave them silence, not cold silence, but peaceful silence. The older girl sat down in a chair and finally relaxed. The younger one lay on a soft bed and fell asleep instantly. Elias looked at them for a long time. Then he sat in the pilot seat and whispered, "You're safe now." But outside, in the dark corners of space, danger was still watching. Elias had saved them, but he had no idea who these girls really were, or what they might become. The stars moved quietly as the ship disappeared into the void. 3 souls, now bound by fate. The human who couldn't walk away, and the alien. Girls who had nothing until someone said, "Come home." There was something strange about the way he moved. He didn't rush, didn't panic. His steps were slow, careful, but full of confidence, as if he had walked through fire before and survived it. The ship was quiet. Only the soft hum of the engine filled the air. Elias checked the control panel, adjusted a few settings, then looked over his shoulder. The two alien girls were sitting on the floor, wrapped in warm blankets, staring at him with wide, unsure eyes. They hadn't spoken much, not since he brought them aboard. He didn't blame them. They had the eyes of survivors, too young to carry such pain, too quiet for their age. He had seen that look before, on soldiers, on children in war zones. And once, in the mirror, the younger girl, whose name he didn't know yet, kept holding her sister's hand. The older one was alert, still protecting, still watching. But now she was also curious. "Where are we going?" she finally asked, her voice soft but sharp. Elias turned the pilot seat slightly and looked at her. "Someplace warm," he said. "Someplace with food, beds, and real sunlight." She didn't answer. She didn't believe him, not yet. Stood up and walked to the small kitchen at the back of the ship. He opened a cabinet and took out 2 metal cups, then filled them with something warm and sweet. "Here," he said, placing the cups in front of them. "It's cocoa. Something we drink on Earth when it's cold or when life gets too heavy." The little one sniffed it, then took a sip. Her eyes lit up a little, just a little. The older one waited, watched her sister, then took a sip too. She said nothing, but her fingers relaxed slightly. "You said Earth," she said. "We thought Earth was dead." Elias gave a short laugh. "Yeah, most people think that, and maybe they're right, but I'm still here, aren't I? I call that proof." The younger girl finally spoke. "Why did you help us?" Her voice trembled, like a child afraid of the answer. Elias looked at her and didn't smile this time. He spoke the truth, in a voice heavy with memory. "Because someone once helped me when I had nothing, and because I don't believe in leaving people behind." Silence filled the ship again. This time, it wasn't the silence of fear. It was something softer, like the silence after a storm. The ship passed through a cluster of stars, golden and distant. They lit the inside of the cabin in soft, shifting colors. For a moment, everything looked peaceful, even beautiful. Elias returned to the cockpit, his eyes scanning the radar. There were things out there. Ships that hunted survivors, pirates, scanners, worse. He had to stay ahead of them. He wasn't just flying 2 broken girls to safety. He was flying through memories, his own. Years ago, he had been left behind on a battlefield. He remembered crawling through dust, blood in his mouth. He remembered a hand reaching down and lifting him up. That hand belonged to a woman named Mara. She was gone now, but her words stayed with him. "Don't save the world," she had said. "Just save one soul at a time." Now maybe he was doing that. Maybe 2 souls this time. "Do you have names?" he asked, keeping his eyes on the screen. The older girl paused, then said quietly, "I'm Naya." The younger one added, "I'm Leary." "Nice to meet you," Elias replied. "I'm Captain Elias Rain of the ship Wanderer." Naya tilted her head. "You're a captain?" He smiled. "Only when someone else is on board." Leary giggled a little. The first sound of joy she had made since escaping. Naya didn't smile, but she was starting to understand this human was different. That night, they slept in the sleeping pods covered in warm blankets. For the first time in many nights, they didn't cry. Elias stayed awake in the cockpit, watching the stars. He felt the weight of something new. Something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. But far behind them, in the shadows of space, something moved. A signal was triggered. The ship Naya and Leary had escaped from had sent out a beacon before shutting down. And now someone was following that trail. Elias didn't know it yet. But this rescue wasn't the end of danger. It was only the beginning. The 2 girls were not just orphans, not just refugees. They were something more, something powerful. And the universe had just started to notice. The ship was warm, but her hands were still shaking. Naya sat alone near the window, Her eyes locked on the stars outside. They were beautiful. But she didn't trust beauty anymore. Beauty had been there the day her world fell apart, behind her. Leary laughed softly. Elias was showing her how to use the food printer. She had just printed something called pancakes, and her eyes were wide with joy. Naya didn't turn around. She couldn't relax, not yet, not when her body still remembered. Running through fire. Not when her ears still expected explosions. Elias glanced at Naya from the corner of his eye. He didn't say anything. He had seen people like her before young, but old on the inside, carrying the weight of people they'd lost. Later that night, after the lights dimmed and silence returned, Naya finally lay down in the sleeping pod. She kept one arm over Leary, as if afraid someone might take her away in the dark. But dreams were cruel, and soon they came. The room shook, smoke, screams, blinding flashes of light, her mother's voice yelling, "Run, Naya! Take Leary, go!" She turned back, but the house was gone. Naya shot up from her sleep, gasping, her body soaked in sweat. She looked around, confused, breathing fast. This wasn't her planet. This wasn't fire. She was on a spaceship, Elias's ship. Footsteps echoed down the hall. Elias appeared in the doorway, eyes alert but calm. He didn't ask what happened. He just walked over and sat nearby. Not too close, not too far. "You okay?" he asked gently. Naya didn't answer. He waited, then stood up, walked to the kitchen, and came back with a warm drink. He placed it next to her, then sat back down. Silence again, but not empty. Finally, Naya whispered, "I keep hearing it. The war, the screams, my mom's voice. It never stops." Elias nodded slowly. "It won't stop for a while. But you're not alone anymore." Naya looked at him, her voice tight. "Why are you doing this? You don't even know us." Elias leaned back in the chair, his voice lower now. "I don't need to know everything to help. I saw 2 people who needed saving. Do you know how rare that is in this galaxy?" She stared at him, eyes tired. "People don't save others for free." "Not anymore." Elias gave a dry laugh. "Yeah, maybe. But I'm not people." Leary stirred in her sleep and turned over. Naya watched her sister for a moment, her shoulders slowly lowering. Then she turned back to Elias. "What's Earth like?" she asked, almost in a whisper. His eyes softened. "Messy," he said. "Loud, full of strange smells, strange people. But it's home. It has oceans, trees, real wind, rain that feels like music." He smiled a little. "And pancakes. Always pancakes." Naya gave the smallest smile. Just for a second. But it faded quickly. "You think we'll ever get there?" she asked. "I don't think," Elias replied. "I promise." The next day, Elias began teaching them things. How to use the ship's basic tools. How to read the maps. How to cook simple meals. Leary picked it up fast. She was curious, bright, always asking questions. Naya didn't ask much, but she watched everything. Memorized every button, every exit. She wanted to feel useful. She wanted control again. Elias never pushed them. He spoke with calm energy. Patient, never angry, and when they made mistakes, he simply smiled and said, "Try again," bit by bit. Naya began to relax. She still didn't trust the universe. But maybe, just maybe, she was starting to trust him. One evening, while Leary was asleep, Naya walked into the cockpit. Elias was sitting alone, staring out at the stars. She sat beside him without a word. For a long time they didn't speak. Then Naya asked quietly, "Why did you name the ship Wanderer?" Elias smiled without looking at her. "Because it's always searching for something better, something kinder." He turned to her. "Like you." She didn't know how to answer that. But for the first time since her planet burned, she didn't feel broken. She felt seen. But far away, danger was growing. Someone had found the signal from their old ship. A dark ship now followed them, silent and hidden. Naya didn't know it yet. But her past hadn't let her go. It was coming, and this time, it wouldn't. Be kind, asterisk. It started with silence. A strange kind of silence, not peaceful, not calm, The kind that feels like the air is holding its breath. Elias felt it first. He sat in the pilot chair, eyes locked on the radar. It had been blank for days. Just stars and silence, but now something blinked on the edge of the screen. Faint, far, slow, but definitely moving. He didn't say anything at first. Didn't want to alarm the girls, but his fingers tapped the console, faster than usual. Naya noticed. She was learning how to read the screens. When she saw the flashing dot, her face went cold. Is that? She asked. I don't know yet, Elias said quietly. But it's following us. They changed course, twice, then 3 times. Still, the blinking light adjusted each time. Whoever it was, they weren't just flying by, they were tracking Leary. Sat in her seat, quiet and nervous. She could feel the tension, even if no one spoke it out loud. Why would anyone follow us? She whispered. Naya didn't answer, but her mind was racing. There were people who wanted them gone. People who didn't like survivors. And worse, people who knew what they were. Elias stood up, calm but serious. We need to prepare for trouble, he said. He pressed a hidden button under the control panel. With a sharp hiss, part of the floor opened. Inside was a metal case. He opened it, and something strange unfolded. It was armor, sleek, black, and old, the kind used by Earth soldiers. Before the last interplanetary war, Naya stared. You're a soldier? I was, Elias replied, sliding a metal glove over his hand. Not anymore, Leary pointed at the small, cube-shaped object floating inside the case. What's that? A gift from an old friend, he said, a defense AI smarter than most people. He tapped it twice, and it blinked to life. A soft voice echoed through the ship. Hello, Captain. Long time no see. Naya walked into the hallway, heart pounding. The last time she had seen armor, it was chasing her. The last time she had heard an AI voice, it was warning her family of an incoming attack. She wanted to run, but this time she wasn't alone. She returned with a calm face, hiding the storm inside her. We need to hide, she said. They don't just want to follow. They want us. Elias looked at her. There was something in her voice, knowledge, certainty, fear. What do you know? Naya? Naya hesitated, then said slowly, they weren't just after refugees. They were after children like us, children who survived certain tests, who escaped the camps. Elias's eyes narrowed. Tests? Naya didn't answer. She just looked at Leary, who now stared down at her hands as if they didn't belong to her. Before Elias could ask more, the radar beeped again. This time, the dot was closer, much closer. It wasn't just one ship, it was 3. Elias didn't wait. He threw on the rest of his armor. Aye, prepare defense grid. Lock the girls in the safe room. If I fall. Naya stood up. We're not hiding. I can help. Elias looked at her. She wasn't asking for permission. She had the look of someone who had seen fire and now wanted to stand in front of it. Fine, he said. But stay close. Leary stayed near the back, silent but watching. Inside her, something was waking up. Something strange. Something not completely normal. The enemy ships docked without warning. Metal claws gripped Wanderer's hull. Lights dimmed, power flickered, and the ship's defense system began to hum. Elias stood at the main door, a large weapon in hand. He looked more like a ghost from an old war than a captain. Naya stood beside him, holding a short plasma blade she had found in the training room. The door hissed, smoke poured in. Then they came tall, armored figures, faces hidden behind masks. One of them pointed at the girls. Return the assets, the voice said, robotic and cold. Elias stepped forward. His voice was like steel. You want them? Come take them. And then the storm began. Laser shots fired, shields cracked. Metal echoed with chaos. Naya moved faster than she thought possible. Her blade hummed as she cut through the air. Elias fought like a ghost from Earth's forgotten battles, but just as they started to push back the invaders, something strange happened. Leary screamed, and a wave of energy exploded around her. The attackers froze mid-step, their suits glitching. Lights flickered, then blew out completely. Naya turned, shocked. Leary stood there, her hands glowing faint blue, her eyes wide and confused. Elias stared, breathing hard. What was that? Naya didn't speak. She couldn't, because in that moment, she knew they weren't just survivors. They were something more. Something dangerous, and maybe that's why the universe wouldn't let them go. The silence after battle is never peaceful. It's heavy, sharp, full of things that weren't said. On board the Wanderer, smoke still floated in the air, and the lights blinked nervously, but no one moved. Everyone was staring at the girl who had just done something impossible. Leary stood frozen in place. Her hands were glowing softly, as if starlight had poured into her skin. Her eyes were wide with fear, not from the enemies, but from herself. What did I do? She whispered, her voice shaking. Elias lowered his weapon slowly, never taking his eyes off her. He had seen many strange things in war, but nothing like this. He took a careful step forward, speaking gently. Leary, it's okay, he said. You're safe here. She shook her head. No, I felt something inside me. It wasn't me. It was like the ship listened to me. Naya rushed to her, holding her close. It's all right, she said, but her voice didn't sound sure. She looked up at Elias with the same fear in her eyes, because deep down, Naya had seen this before. Not exactly, but something close. Later, after they cleared the wreckage, sealed the doors, and powered the ship back up, Elias called them to the control room. He pulled out a small scanner from a hidden compartment under the table. This is old tech, he said. Human-made, used to detect hidden implants, radiation traces, gene patterns. Naya frowned. Why would we have implants? Maybe you don't, Elias replied. But something inside Leary connected to the ship's systems. She shut down enemy tech without even touching it. Leary looked down at her hands again. They were normal now, small, soft, scared. But she could still feel something deep inside. A hum. A quiet energy waiting to rise again. Elias scanned both of them. The scanner beeped twice when it passed over Leary's spine, then once more when it passed over Nia's arm. His eyebrows raised slightly. This isn't just a rescue, he said, almost to himself. This is a weapon test. Naya stood up quickly. We're not weapons. We're just girls. Elias looked at her. Calm but serious, I believe. You, he said. But someone out there doesn't. Whoever built that tracking signal. They knew what you were. Naya sat down slowly, her body tense. Then finally she spoke. When we were taken from our city, they put us in different rooms. They said it was for safety, but we knew it was something else. They ran tests on our blood, our minds, our reactions. Leary looked up. They said I was 1 in a million. I thought it meant I was lucky. Naya shook her head. No, it meant you were valuable. Elias turned to the ship's AI. Run full genetic mapping on the scan data. Compare it with Earth archives. The AI responded. Scan complete. Subject Leary shares partial DN, a structure with Earth-based neural interface technology. Subject Naya shows signs of memory shielding information hidden behind protective brain walls. Naya's heart dropped. What kind of information? Unknown, the AI said, but based on the pattern. It was placed there intentionally, most likely by military-grade process. Elias sat back, stunned. You weren't just prisoners, he said slowly. You were turned into something. Leary backed away, scared. I don't want to be a weapon. She cried. I don't want to hurt people. Elias stood up and walked to her. He knelt down, placed his hand gently on her shoulder. You're not a weapon, he said firmly. You're a child, and whatever they did to you, it doesn't define you. Naya watched him, unsure. How do we fight people who built us like machines? You don't, Elias replied. You remind them you're human, even if your blood isn't. You fight not with what they gave you, but with what they couldn't take. That night, Naya couldn't sleep. She stood by the window, watching the stars again. Leary was asleep, whispering softly in her dreams. Elias came beside her, holding 2 mugs of cocoa. "You're thinking too much," he said. "I can see it in your eyes." Naya took the mug, nodded. "I don't know who I am anymore." "You're a sister," Elias said. "That's enough for today." She looked at him. The human who had saved them, fed them, protected them. "Why do you care so much?" Elias looked out into space, his voice quiet. "Because I've seen too many kids lost to war. And if I can save even one, maybe it makes up for the ones I couldn't." Far away, on a dark, distant station, a transmission was received. A hooded figure watched the footage from the enemy ships before they were destroyed. He saw the girl, saw the energy blast, and smiled. "She's activated," he whispered. "Send the hunters." The stars were disappearing, one by one. They blinked out behind a black shadow crawling across space. It wasn't night. It was a ship, massive, silent, covered in cold armor and glowing red scars. A hunter-class war vessel, designed not just to chase, but to erase. Inside the Wanderer, the alarm lights blinked for the first time since Elias had powered them down weeks ago. Now they came alive again, blinking red, screaming without sound. Naya stood at the edge of the control room, staring at the radar. "It found us," she said quietly. Elias didn't answer. He was already putting on his armor, his eyes darker than they had ever been. Leary stood in the doorway, frozen, her hands clenched. "I don't want to hurt anyone," she said, almost begging. Elias turned to her. "Then don't," he said. "But if they try to take you, don't let them." The ship shook slightly. A signal had locked onto them. "Why are they doing this?" Naya asked. "They already destroyed our home." Elias stared at the red blinking dots on the screen. "It's not about your home anymore," he said. "They want control, and you two are something they can't control." He turned to face them both. "They'll send a message," he said. "They always do, right then." A screen lit up with a cold, pale face, a man more machine than human, wires crawling from his neck like veins. His eyes were empty. "Return the girl," he said. "And the other one can live." Naya stepped forward. "You're afraid of her," she said. The man blinked slowly. "No," he replied. "I fear what should become if trained by someone like you." Then the screen went black, and the countdown began. Elias moved fast. He set up the defense grid, activated the core shield, and rerouted all systems to weapons. But deep down, he knew they couldn't win this with weapons alone. Naya watched him move. "Have you done this before?" she asked. He nodded once. "Too many times." She looked into his eyes and saw something different. Not fear, regret. "You've lost people," she said. "Not as a question. I have," Elias replied. "And I don't want to lose anyone else." Leary stood in the training room. Alone, the ship hummed around her, and she reached out her hand, without touching anything. The lights responded, one by one. They turned blue, then white, then off. The ship was listening to her. She could feel something alive inside her chest, like a second heartbeat, a pulse of energy that didn't belong to flesh and blood. She closed her eyes, and suddenly she saw the hunter ship through the walls. She saw its core, its weapons, its weakness. She gasped and fell to the floor. Naya ran in, picked her up. "Leary, what happened?" Leary looked up, eyes glowing faint blue. "I know where to strike," she whispered. Elias stood before the front bay door, his armor locked, gun in hand. The ship shook again. Enemy boarding craft was landing. He looked at Naya and Leary. "This is where we make our stand," he said. "No running, no hiding," nodded, holding her plasma blade tight. Leary stood behind them, not as scared as before. Then came the blast. The door exploded open, smoke poured in, and enemy soldiers marched forward. But this time, Elias didn't wait. He moved like a shadow of war, striking first, hard and fast. Naya fought by his side, blocking shots, cutting through armor, and behind them, Leary stepped forward, calm now. Her hands glowed again, but this time, she didn't scream, she focused. A wave of blue energy burst from her body, Machines around her froze. Enemy rifles shut down mid-fire. Soldiers fell, twitching, helpless. The enemy commander entered last. He aimed directly at Elias and fired. The blast hit Elias in the chest. He fell hard to the floor, armor cracked, smoke rising from his side. Nitrogen monoxide! Naya shouted, running toward him. Leary's eyes flashed, and this time, the power inside her answered with fire. Blue lightning exploded from her hands and struck the commander. He dropped his weapon and fell to his knees, gasping. Leary walked forward, not blinking. "This ends now," she said, her voice deeper, filled with echoes. She reached out and touched the enemy's head. Not to kill him, but to show him, to let him feel what she had felt, the pain. The loss, the fear, the fire. The screen behind him shattered. His mind collapsed. Later, Naya sat beside Elias, who was now resting on the medbed. He was alive, breathing slowly. "You did it," he said softly. Naya smiled through tears. "No." She did. Leary sat alone by the window. She wasn't smiling, she was thinking. Thinking about what came next, because deep down, she knew this wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Of power, of truth, and of war. The fire was gone. The silence that followed was different this time, not fearful, not waiting for danger. This silence was soft, warm, like the world itself had taken a deep breath and finally let it go. The wanderer floated above a small blue planet, its surface full of oceans and forests. The sun rose slowly behind it, casting golden light across the windows. Inside, Elias was sitting in the medbay, a patch across his shoulder. His armor cracked but his heart beating strong. Leary sat beside him, her feet swinging slightly, holding a mug of cocoa in both hands. Naya stood near the front of the ship, staring out at the blue planet. Her eyes weren't cold anymore. They were full of something new, something she didn't quite understand yet. Peace, maybe, or hope. "This is Earth?" she asked, her voice quiet. Elias stood beside her, his hand resting against the glass. "It's not perfect," he said, "but it's home." Naya looked at the green lands and endless water. She couldn't remember the last time she saw something that wasn't burning. She couldn't remember the last time she felt safe, just standing. Leary ran over, her energy different, now brighter, lighter. She had changed. They all had. "What do we do now?" she asked. Elias looked at both of them. "Now we start over," he said. "We find a place. We build a life. You've seen the worst of the galaxy," he added. "It's time you saw the best." They landed in a quiet valley, far from the noise of cities. Birds flew overhead, real ones, not drones. The air was warm, the grass soft under their boots. Naya took a step out first, slowly, as if the ground might vanish. It didn't. It held her. She took another step, then another. And then she smiled. Leary ran past her, laughing, her arms wide like wings. "This is real," she shouted. "This is real." Elias followed behind, limping slightly. He picked up a handful of dirt, let it fall through his fingers. "Smells like life," he said with a grin. They built a small home there, nothing big, just enough. A place with a roof, food, and a bed that didn't shake in the dark. Elias taught them how to grow plants, how to cook earth food. He read to them from old human books at night, stories of courage, kindness, and rebuilding. Naya learned how to laugh again, not just fake smiles, but full, belly-deep laughter. She watched Leary grow strong, her powers becoming calmer, easier to control, and slowly, she allowed herself to believe that maybe they weren't weapons. Maybe they were just girls who survived one night, under the stars. Elias sat with both of them near a small fire. "Do you know why I really brought you here?" he asked. Naya tilted her head. "Because you didn't want to leave us behind?" Elias shook his head. "No, I brought you here because I needed to remember. Remember what it means to protect something, not destroy it." He looked at them. "You reminded me what being human means," Naya whispered. "But we're not human," Elias smiled softly. "You don't need human skin to have a human heart. You fought, you protected, You chose kindness, even when no one gave it to you. That's more human than most of us. The next morning, a message came through the satellite. An open broadcast. The war is ending, the voice said. Peace talks have begun. Refugees are being welcomed across systems. Naya looked at Elias. Should we go back? He shook his head. You don't go back to a fire once you've found the sun. They stayed. They planted trees, read books, and watched the seasons change. And slowly the pain faded, not completely, but enough to breathe again one evening. Leary wrote something on a stone and placed it beside the front door. Naya walked over and read the words out loud. Home isn't a place, it said. It's a person who stayed when no one else did. Naya smiled and looked at Elias. He just nodded. No medals, he said. No parades. Just a roof, a sky, and two girls who made it through hell. And in that quiet moment, after all the chaos, after the running, the fear, the fire, they finally understood what it meant to be safe, not just alive, but home.